Okay, so why don't we get started? First, everyone, thanks for joining today. My name is Devin Daly. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at True. If you don't know, True is an artificial intelligence organization, and we're focused on machine learning that automates the intelligent processing of lending data. We call that lending intelligence. On today's webinar, we're going to be discussing how lenders are applying AI to solve the challenges related to today's LOS platforms. So besides me moderating the platform, I'm joined by Whitney Hawks. Whitney's the VP of Mortgage Operations at Truestone Home Mortgage. Also joined by Mike Metz. Mike Metz is the Operations Manager at VIP Mortgage. Also joining us, Allie Deers. Allie Deers is the IT Lending Solutions Manager at Truestone Home Mortgage. And finally, Bob Noble. Bob and I work here together at True. Bob is the Chief Product and Technology Officer. So just a few things before we get started. First and foremost, you're going to have the opportunity to submit questions that you'll type in at the bottom. There's a Q&A tab at the bottom of your Zoom interface. You can send in your questions at any point in time during our presentation. We'll address these questions both during the webinar and at the Q&A session at the end. This webinar is going to be recorded, and it'll also be shared with everyone within about 24 to 48 hours after a presentation. You'll receive an email link. So let's go ahead and kick things off. We want to talk about, if you look at the history of the LOS, really years ago, it started out as a form filler. It was an electronic way to collect data and fill out your forms. And it's evolved significantly from there today, right? And we've got the big players in the LOS space. And in the past few years, there have been some new entrants, that are quite frankly, I think, exciting. I think one of the things the loan origination system really has lacked for years is a way to streamline the workflow and a way for us to achieve that exception-based processing. Right. And so you look at some of the new entrants, and that's exactly what they're focused on. And so today, what we want to do is figure out how you can love your existing LOS. And we're going to be focusing on how AI with document classification and even data extraction can help you love your LOS and change the way you work. And we're going to be talking in depth with both VIP and Truestone about that. We're going to be talking about how they're leveraging today classification. And from a retail perspective, we'll be hearing from Truestone. And from a correspondent perspective, we'll be hearing from Mike Metz at VIP. So first question, and I think this first question should go to Truestone. You're using artificial intelligence today for document classification. How have your processes changed within your LOS, and what positive results have you seen? And maybe, Whitney, maybe you can talk about what you looked like before.
Oh, absolutely. Well, what it was before is manual. Everything was manual. We had to wait for the processor to, have the time to individually pull that file up, look at documents individually drag them to the placeholders, verify if it's correct. And anytime we were looking for efficiencies, we were looking for things to save and shave off days of our manufacturing of a loan. And so when we came across True AI, that is exactly what we were hoping to achieve. So the past was manual waiting, and it was days and days during this process that if we could shave off 3, 4, 5, 6 days of reviewing documents and validating and pulling it to the correct placeholder, we could, increase our turn times. And that's the biggest difference I think we've seen. And also, just the automation itself, it validates the document, it can extract the information from that document. And we have that second level review, and we get it quicker, and we're able to respond to our customer faster, and there's less back and forth. So that's how we've been utilizing it. And it's helped our manufacturing time, and that's always important. Time is money. There's another section of that I think Allie should touch on briefly when it comes to how we're using it now.
Absolutely. Thanks, Whitney. One of the things that I really wanted to talk about was more from the IT and the data extraction side of things. What we were really excited about when we initially talked with True before implementation was the fact that they had such high levels of confidence in their documentation and in their extraction and being able to review the documents. But what we wanted to do was make sure that for us that was something that was going to be accurate. So when we first implemented True, we set our confidence levels down to 0. And we took the time to import batches and review everything and scan documents and build that confidence level. And we're really excited to say that after just, I think we've put in 17,000 batches. And at this time, we're at 94 to 97% with our documents, which is an incredible win for us and something that we were thoroughly impressed by. And so that's something that we've been really excited to be able to see. And we also were able to take and send some documents that weren't recognized by True system and send them to them, and they're able to put those into their library for us so that they are able to be reviewed and documented. One of the big things that we wanted to do was make sure that our staff didn't have to go out of Encompass, because that's where all of our staff are utilizing the systems. And so we were able to purchase the form that True has and be able to have them have a one-stop shop into Encompass to be able to utilize that, which has been something that's been really helpful for our team.
Got it. Thank you so much. So, Whitney, what I heard, and Allie, what I heard, the 94 to 97%, per page classification accuracy. So now 94 to 97% of the documents don't have to be reviewed by a processor, right? And it's not a processor's opinion of probably where, what the document is or where it should go. So can I drill down on that and ask, are the underwriters having an easier time of this? Because I've seen in my past where each branch, each processor has their own opinion of what the document is, what it should be named, and where it should go. And then the underwriter has to redo everything that they just did.
Yes, exactly. And that has avoided that, going back, rejecting steps and that back and forth that I was mentioning earlier. That was a really big issue that we struggled with internally with our production staff is the validation of the document, missing pages, or it's not accurate, or all those things have been eliminated with the validation process and making sure that it does know what it is. And we have restricted our placeholders from people making their own, and we've really streamlined our process when we implemented True AI into it. And that Encompass connector is a dashboard that they go to now. So it was just kind of a shift in how they look at the documents and the information that's extracting, and instead of having to go to all the different forms inside Encompass, they go to this dashboard and push it to those individual field IDs inside. So again, another way to be more efficient and to really compare what the document is, what it says in the system, and if they want to override it. So it gives our team members the power and the tools to be effective and push files forward with more confidence.
Great. Allie, the other thing that you said, I think everyone today, or in the past several years, when we think about the digital mortgage, you think about presenting some electronic interface to the borrower. But what you said, what I think is more impactful, you're able to respond to borrowers faster as a result of your version of the digital mortgage. Hey, we've digitized the processes and now we can respond faster. Can you tell us about any feedback you've gotten from customers in terms of response times or any correlation in customer satisfaction?
Absolutely. So one of the things that has been so important for us is being able to do that first level review with the documents and extract that data and import it into our Encompass system. We all know that when people are manually reviewing a file, there's always that chance of data changes or somebody changes a letter or a number, and then there isn't that accuracy piece. And so one of the things that's been really exciting for us is being able to utilize True to be able to extract that data and then import it into Encompass so that we don't have that manual piece of it. We're able to remove that part of it where it's just the data extraction. And then that allows our borrowers to be confident that the information that they're getting on their loan estimate or any of the other documentation that they might see in their disclosures are really accurate because they're coming from documentation that they provided to us.
Got it.
We've also
Thank you.
gotten numerous Zillow reviews from previous customers who came to us, previous members who did loans, who said the process now is night and day different than what it used to be here. And that was across Zillow reviews, customer surveys that we send out, of course, on all of our closed loans. The feedback has been phenomenal with the changes that we've been implementing to upgrade our production for mortgage and get it more with AI, more with streamlining, more with efficiencies, and making sure the data is accurate and that their process isn't painful.
Got it. Thank you. I'm going to ask a last question around, Ali, I think what you said earlier about confidence levels, right? And for those who don't know, at True, we can set confidence levels at the document level. And what you said was you set them all at 0 first. And what that means is, hey, I'm going to review every single document. To me, that meant, and tell me if I'm right, you were kind of concerned about organizational change and you wanted people to review every single document so that they could have the confidence that you did in True that, hey, True's got this right. You can rely on it. And if that was the case, I think that's a brilliant approach to organizational change. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we did when we were first looking at True and talking with you guys was we needed to have the buy-in from the rest of our team to make sure that when we were presenting this to them and we were going to ask them to change their entire process to implement this, that we needed to make sure that we had everything backed up to a loan level. And so the way that we ended up doing that was, to your point, Devin, bringing the confidence levels down to 0. And Whitney and I started putting up batches on every single loan file and being able to identify from not only a loan level, but a document level, to your point, and to be able to bring that confidence level up to 94, 97%. And that was something that was really huge to the rest of the mortgage managers to get their buy-in, to be able to tell them, this is what it's going to provide to you. And this is the time it's going to save for you. And this is what we've done in the beginning to make sure that you are able to have that buy-in and that confidence that you need.
Got it. And did that work well?
It did. Whitney can maybe speak a little bit more to it because I'm from the IT side, but I know that the rest of the mortgage team seem to have very positive interactions.
Yeah, when trying to present this to the leaders and the different EVPs and departments, it was really hard to buy in, like, oh, okay, it's 90-something%, sure, because that was a really high percentage that we were being told that it could get on our documents. And so we thought it was very important to do it ourselves at 0 and watch the transition and document each stage of the confidence going up and when it happened and how many documents it took and just the whole process organically from start, from the testing to implementation to live, and as we progressed through documents that were specific to us and the states in which we lend. And that was an eye-opener for when I was presenting all the stats to the board about what this new technology did for our organization. So that was a huge win for us.
Got it. Thank you both. All right, second question. We'll go to Mr. Metz from VIP. So, Mike, VIP started using artificial intelligence in the correspondent channel. Can you tell us, what results you've seen since implementing?
Absolutely. And it's interesting because we had a lot of the same process as Whitney and Ali, and we had a lot of the same results, just with a very different channel. When we started off doing a very thorough review of our process, we found that every step of the way, people said, oh, well, these documents are not where they should be in the e-folder. I'm going to move them down to here. And then I get to the next step, and half the time they'd end up moving it right back to the original folder again. And process would go back and forth. So we ended up having probably 4 times that documents would change the e-folder they were in as part of people's fixing the file. And, that's just a lot of wasted time and effort. So that's one huge thing that it saved, is just moving those files into a consistent format. So even if everyone doesn't agree 100%, at least now it's consistent every time in the same e-folders. Everyone knows where to look for those. That alone saved probably like 30 minutes off each person, just not doing their little reorganization. But then that initial split was a big one. That was, as I think it was Whitney was talking about, that a process that takes hours, even if they are on their A game and paying attention. But then the time for them to actually go in and do that, you're not going to have someone when it's 4:30 p.m. and they've got to start cooking dinner at 5:15 think, you know what, I'm going to go through and start splitting up documents into e-folders right now. So even ignoring the time, just the days that it would start to take, because fine, I'm going to tackle that at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. And now you lose extra hours on the clock. So it really reduced the time, and then also just the mental energy on that one. If someone doesn't have to think about now spending that 2 to 3 hours splitting up the file, and that's not the most fun part of the loan process, it's not going to get your creative juices flowing. They're more willing to just, okay, let me go ahead and grab a new file really quickly and work it up. Oh, it's a slam dunk. Let me move it right on through. So it helps in kind of that Pareto's, both the 80%, the monstrosity files, but then also moving those other files that can just fly through the system quicker.
Got it. Any insight, Mike, on any other metrics like turnaround time or any other, economic metrics?
Turnaround time has definitely helped quite a bit. The other kind of factor that plays into it is the data extraction tool. And, we are still working on that one, but getting that data in and having it actionable day 0 is a huge help in being able to identify if there is something up right away versus days into the process. And I think whether it's correspondent or retail or any other channel, having a discussion on day 1 versus day 11 is a very different discussion. And it's tough to put a monetary value to that, but ask any person who's picking up that phone call, and there's a very big value to that.
Got it. So let me just, if I can drill down on that, I think your perspective is the same as Allie and Whitney's. Your turnaround time to your customer, in this case, the lender, right, is much faster. So it's not day 5 or day 10, it's on day 1. You've processed that file, so you've recognized deficiencies, and now you can get back to the lender immediately.
Absolutely.
Got it. Do you think over time, Mike, that's going to help you earn a larger share of their business, perhaps?
Absolutely. People really take turn times into consideration, especially on the correspondent side, especially with warehouse line rates increasing and people wanting to get files moving along faster. And I think to their side, even on the retail side, clients, they get more and more used to being able to do everything on their phone instantly. Our industry is probably not going to become an instant industry anytime soon. Yeah. But the more you can shave the time off the clock, the more you get towards what that kind of client expectation is, even if that expectation is not quite based in reality.
Got it. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I think, for our next question, why don't we open it up to everybody? And Mike, you've touched on data. So beyond classification, we talked a little bit about data extraction. And so when you think beyond, your current usage and you think about being able to leverage the data, what does it mean to each one of you? And Whitney, why don't we start with you, if that's all right?
Oh, absolutely. Well, we, just like Mike mentioned in his space with testiness, we are also very excited about having that extraction. And we are still working on how that looks in the future, what we're going to use it for. We service our own loans here at TrueStone, and we have portfolio loans, we have a correspondent channel. So there's a lot of different uses for that data extraction. And we do have a data team. So as we started testing this and rolling it out, it is going to be, how do we utilize that? What are the best cases for that? And we've talked about in our servicing space, utilizing that for when it gets mapped over to their system, to service that loan and that customer, that member. And then we've talked about it for our QC and QA, because we do a lot of that. And how do you get ahead of that? How do you make sure you don't have a buyback or a pre-fund issue? Or how do we just make sure some of our checks and balances are there? And this is a tool that we can absolutely see helping us do that. It's going to take us time to build that out for our way and our process and our, niceties that we have throughout. And of course, all the different avenues in which we do loans. But that is exactly the future that we see is just having a good product. I mean, that's really what it's all about, from top to bottom, all the way through all the documents we get. There's thousands and thousands of pages. How do we make sure we don't have to send a post-closing, CD? How do we make sure that we don't have a buyback because we missed something and we could have caught it earlier? And these are things that we can do to utilize the technology that's right here to do just that.
Yeah. I love that you've touched on things that all have a really demonstrable ROI, and that you're focused on those things that are going to bring the highest value. Mike, same question to you. As you think about data extraction and you think about the data, and it's true that we're focused on manufacturing the highest quality data for you and data validation. So when you think about that, what are the uses that you're going to experiment with and then go live with?
So what we immediately went towards on the data extraction side is what I'll call the very non-sexy data. And there's a lot of information that, and most people in the mortgage process can identify it, that is not exactly exciting information, but can absolutely cause a non-purchase. And being tired, slightly miskeying something, or just forgetting to check because it's in the middle. Maybe you happen to get a phone call right as you open the flood cert. Maybe you happen to, you're doing two things, you're working two files. There's a million stories that I've heard over the year. And someone once told me that, well, it gets measured, gets improved. Well, to me, that data is only useful if you're actually looking at it. And that's the nice thing about the data extraction is it's automating, finding the data, taking that out, and then you can do that next step in the LOS, which is actually analyzing that data. And if you just say, okay, go ahead and analyze it, if it's one of these three things every time, now there's almost a 0% chance that you're going to miss that information. And I'm thinking more on the retail side for this, but it's one of the applications we've been thinking about is, the homeowner's insurance. You can check the coverage and make sure your coverage is there when you first receive it. But sometimes you end up having to go back to the insurance company 3-4 times for updates to that insurance for small, stupid things. They mistyped the mortgagee clause, and then they need to fix the address on it. Well, all of a sudden you get version of the insurance and the coverage is down now. So if you have a system that doesn't care if it's the first or the 14th time, and it's still going to check that coverage every time against it, that's where you can really get more scalability, but also that predictability and actionability of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if those are all actionability words, but I'm using them.
I like them all.
So yeah, ensuring high quality data helps you ensure high quality loans, right?
Absolutely.
It's highly saleable. Allie, so from an IT perspective, data being your specialty area, right? What are the ways that you're thinking about the data that True can provide and how you can leverage it?
Absolutely. So one of the things that's been so exciting for us is determining the hierarchy of documents, in the sense that what is the document that is going to be the most accurate, the larger percentage of the time, and making sure that that's the document that we use at the very forefront to extract data from and import into Encompass. And then be able to determine that the rest of the list, because we want to make sure that the document that has the highest likelihood of being accurate is the one that we're most likely to utilize to extract data and put into Encompass for our team. And then being able to use the rest of those documents as kind of checkpoints and touchstones to be able to determine. But also, one of the things that we really had to work on was at what milestone, at what folder do we want to make sure that that data extraction and review is being done? Because we need to make sure that it's not something that's continually happening in the background, because that could really affect the efficacy and like the speed of our system. And so being able to determine when things are going to stop, when the documents are going to stop being reviewed and extracted and data being pulled from it, and also make sure that that happens and corresponds with the times that our underwriters are reviewing the files, because we want to make sure that data isn't being changed after our underwriters have reviewed it.
Yeah, understood. Understood. Yeah, you know, I wonder if you've been working with Bob on our product roadmap there. You know, I think one of the things that we think about here at True is I think what you're saying, continuous QC. You know, how do I do that such that, you know, we wait for, you know, post-closing, right, to fix issues with the loan file? You know, how can we do that in a much faster way with perhaps a partner system to the LOS, such that as the loan's being originated, you know, we have that exception. We throw up an exception and the loan can continue to go through the production process, but there's someone else who's responsible for using this partner system to make those corrections, right? And keep production moving, but let's catch the errors and let's catch it based on any business rules that you have. Or, you know, Mike, your example, I remember being in the origination space, and 10% of the time, some of the suspenses that we had were on a deck page. It was missing a policy number or missing an expiry date. It's like, wow, these are things we could definitely automate. So I'm going to transition now for a minute. And what I want to do is bring Bob into the conversation. As we talk about loving the LOS and we talk about concepts like a partner system to the LOS, you know, obviously it's important to be integrated to that LOS. I know Bob's going to talk about our Encompass integration and how it works. Bob?
Thanks, Devin. First of all, thanks to folks from TrueStone and VIP. It's great hearing from customers and hearing that the tool is working as we advertised. And I think you touched upon some key information here around automation and how the tool can provide consistent automation and remove a lot of manual labor up front. But I also think it's worth noting that that's just the beginning of the journey as we see it at True, and that the real power lies in the data extraction and how we can further automate parts of the underwriting process and do it in a way that provides a better quality underwrite. So we talk about continuous improvement. Mike, you touched upon how as documents arrive, we're going to grab the latest, we're going to consistently classify it, and we're going to pull out the data and make sure that you have the current, most recent information in your underwriting platform. Those are all key parts of what we envision our tool that can bring to any LOS. We're talking about Encompass today specifically, but our tools are available throughout APIs to other LOSs as well. But just kind of provide a visual on the Encompass side of the world. You know, we talk about unassigned folders, unassigned documents. This represents to me just work that people have to do. So how do we help with that? Well, we first of all we can look at your E folder, unassigned folder, any system folder you point us to, and gather in the documentations and consistently and accurately and very quickly classify and organize these folders in ways that make sense to the business. So we go to the next slide. So this should not be a person function. This is easily a machine function, right? And really put the information in consistently. So when you have to go search for it, Mike, you brought up a great point. Are we doing things consistently? Are we putting documents in the same spot every time? Are we calling them the same thing every time? And I think that's one of the things we really bring to the table too. Accuracy is obviously important, but consistency is key as well, because downstream, that's what your underwriters are going to see, and that's what they're going to be able to build their trust and their partnership and rely on our tool to really do that part that the machine does really well. So auto filing and putting them in the places that you as defined as a business where these documents should go is really critical as well. Can we run to the next slide? There are cases, and we like to say very rare cases, where we can't read the document, right? It's a blurred image, or we're not quite sure, or the confidence isn't quite where it needs to be. Our goal is always to provide accurate data, and so if we're not sure, we're going to ask the question, "Hey, can somebody take a look at this?" So in that instance, and hopefully it's a very rare instance, we can't classify the document, we'll present a screen within Encompass that says, hey, we're having problems with this one. Can you click on this link and let's go ahead and try to resolve this. And go to the next slide. We bring them into our GUI platform quickly. It's seamless. You don't really know you're there. You make the corrections. It's quick and easy. And can happen in a matter of seconds, right? Because usually we'll make a recommendation. We think it's this. Is it this document, or is it? If it's not, then specify something else. And the key here is quick and simple, but also we capture that information when we didn't get it right, and even when we do get it right. We take that information and we use that to learn from it. So if we see that a document similar to the one we just saw, the next time we see it, we'll have a higher level of confidence that we got it right. And eventually we won't ever ask for a user to come in and make this correction, because it is a true machine learning system. So last slide. And I think it's also important that we provide some transparency in how we're behaving. So we do provide status back to Encompass. This is not something you have to click and follow. It all happens automatically. But at any point in time, you can use this screen to see what status our system is at with a particular file. And really, when you take our automation and you combine it with the business rules in your LOS system, Encompass namely, you really can, and you introduce data extraction on top of that, it really can lead to high levels of automation. And now you're really cooking with kerosene, and you're going to do it in a way where you have guaranteed quality, right? And I'll take one more minute to say that, as we move through the process, as a saloon moves through the process, our tools can be used to make sure that we've validated and guaranteed that the data is consistent and correct before we go on to the next stage. Because as we know, fixing a problem with a piece of data as it comes in the door is a lot cheaper and a lot easier than trying to fix it after somebody's purchased a loan and you realize, oh my goodness, this is a material mistake that could lead to a repurchase. So that's all I had. Once again, thanks so much for everyone to give us a little testimony. It really was great to hear from you all.
Bob, thanks. I liked what you said, because I think it was in alignment with what Ali mentioned earlier. We're through that integration, we're keeping everybody in Encompass, and even when we have to take them out, it's really transparent, and we're taking them out only for the exceptions, right?
Correct.
That's got to be correct. I also like the other thing that you said, Bob, because for the past 3-5 years, we've been focusing on robotic process automation in the industry. There's been a lot of adoption of that, and the sentiment that I've heard over and over again is, yeah, it's faster, but I'm still making these decisions based on faulty data, right? So I'm making bad decisions faster. We're focusing on, Ali, you talked about authoritative sources of documents, and therefore being able to cross-compare across documents. That is exactly what we do. So you can have that confidence in the data for the automation, right? And I think that's a really important concept. So we're going to transition now. We've got some questions. Just as a reminder, you can still submit questions at the bottom of the interface. There's a Q&A tab. So let me go in and see what questions we have so far. So our first question: how do we help to reduce existing biases in lending with AI? Bob, you want to start with that one?
Yeah, I can definitely take that. So I think the machines are great at certain things, right? So one of the things it is it doesn't introduce necessarily bias or context or things that humans bring into the loop. So when we make a determination around a decision, it's purely based on the data, and based upon the data as it was represented within the machine learning model. So we learn documents. We learned how to extract that data. We process that data. We look for validity within that data. We don't look at any external factors that would introduce bias. So it's a very clean and consistent underwrite. If one thing you take away from tools like ours is that it's not only accurate, it's consistent. So if I take a loan that looks identical to a loan I processed last week, and I run through the same exact set of same exact AI tools that we use, you're going to get the same exact results. And that's one way to eliminate bias. Now there's that exists not only at the loan level, but within the documents itself. When we're evaluating appraisals and credit and everything else, it's purely based on the data and agnostic to any other external factors.
Got it. Thanks, Bob. I'm gonna go to Whitney and Mike for this one, and I think we addressed it a little bit, but maybe we can be more specific. The question is, what has AI functionality done for your team downstream to give them the lift that equates to dollars saved? So keep that in mind for a minute, because I have a specific question for you, Mike. Based on the customer interaction and responding faster, have you ever gotten any feedback from your lender customers that they're able to decrease the dwell time because you're getting back to them faster? Or maybe you can talk about it in that context.
We haven't had a customer flat out say that to us, but we have tracked it on our side, and it does, as I mentioned, shave just about a full day off of our review process, just both in the time it actually takes, shaving off that, let's call it 3 hours for the sake of discussion, but then also when that happens. So on average, we find that does equate to about a day. The other way that it does save money flat out downstream is it saves the team having to review the e-folders and go through that process. So that's where there's more time downstream that it ends up saving, just in that they know where to find the information on a consistent basis. So altogether, I'd probably say it's more like 4 to 5 hours per file, which then when you equate that out to hourly costs, definitely starts to see some savings. And then from there, lastly, just pure cost wise, is some of that data extraction. When you factor that out, both that's time saved, but then also that is non-purchases avoided, and those are expensive.
Got it. Whitney, so kind of same question to you. You talked about responding to the customer faster. So clearly, there's a benefit for improved reputation. Hey, I want to get through my loan through TrueStone. It was just a fast and easy process. Beyond that, which is probably hard to quantify, are there hard dollar savings that you experienced?
Well, just like Mike mentioned, there's a lot. It's hard to put an actual dollar figure in there. Do we see? We can see the savings though, based on the time it takes for a processor to get into that loan file, drag it to the placeholders. We estimated about 5 hours per processor per week, which we were paying a lot of overtime before for these tasks that they had to do, which we no longer have to pay them to do all of those tasks. In addition, we have a stand-up manager meeting that used to take weeks to get through these lists that we would send on to our QC for pre-fund and post-closing, that we would have to work backwards in fixing certain things, level 1, level 2, level 3, and try to fix things after the fact or before closing. And that has been reduced significantly with the time, with these important managers on this call, trying to spend this time trying to figure out who to go to, what kind of documents they have to get, and do we have to go to title? Do we have to pay for a FedEx? Do we have to get a new CD? Do we owe that customer money? All of those things, it's really hard to put a dollar amount on it, but we know we have saved money. We also don't have to hire, we haven't had to hire any kind of, individual to come in for a period of time. So we used to have people on staff for temp work, and we have not had to do that. Now I know that the loans have changed, but for us, we have a lot of different revenue streams of loans that come in, and we still are quite busy in closing a good amount of volume, and we have maintained our staff. We don't have overtime. Our QC is down. Our repurchases and buybacks are down. And so we've equated it to all of the things that we've done. So dollar amounts, it's hard to put an actual dollar on there, but it has saved us significant amount of time, frustration, and errors, and constantly go back to the team and be like, we made another mistake. So it's been a very positive, overall experience for everybody.
Oh, that's great. That's good to hear. And I think it's probably directly tied back to your chosen path for implementation, getting everybody used to it gradually and giving them confidence in the system. So we've got a couple of questions, and I think these maybe Bob and I can chime in here too, but I think the audience is probably most interested in hearing from Allie, Whitney, and Mike, and these are all around implementation. So what was involved in the implementation? That's the first part of this. and maybe we can take different parts of this. So then, then there's a specific question to TrueStone. How long has TrueStone been providing this service? And then finally, if any of you know this, I don't know that any of you do, but how does this service compare to the ICE AIQ tools?
We previewed AIQ a long time ago, and at the time it was not a favorable comparison. So I've heard that they've improved a lot, at least at the time. You can tell the decision I went because I'm here. The pricing, I'll let you guys talk to that. Implementation time went far faster than I expected. Anytime I heard the word AI and things like XML files, I figured it was going to be a long and fun implementation. Bob and his team are pretty fantastic about helping on that one and translating nerd into words I can understand and work on. So the implementation was actually pretty easy. We went the opposite of what Ali discussed. We set the conditioning for the confidence to 100%. So there was nothing out of Encompass and just let it rip. And then went through and manually reviewed the files to see where it kind of botched it and got feedback from people about, okay, what should be moved, and did it that way. So we did it kind of backwards. Her way is probably less discussions and more one person taking it on. So go whichever way you want. Actual implementation, I would say, was probably like only a week to 2. And it was, some working on the server. The Encompass part was super easy. And then sitting down and going through the e-folders and saying, this is where I want these documents to go round 1. And then from there, planning on doing a few revisits down the road. So all things considered, a much quicker implementation than many vendors.
Got it. Ali and Whitney, what was your experience?
Well, we've had True now for 1.5 years, and implementation, as far as setting up the Encompass connector, only took a couple of weeks. We had to, do a lot of folders and libraries and whatnot, and work with different departments to set it up that way. We had a pretty robust Encompass already with a lot of e-folders and a lot of different movements. So we kind of had to stall implementation internally because we realized at that point we gotta stop the how things are being done right now if this is going to be implemented the way we want. Now we've taken a longer time, and again, this is our choice for the actual production and putting it into our live. We tested it very thoroughly on our test system first, and then we moved it to our live instance, and the underwriters have had access to it for about 8 or 9 months now, and the processors are just getting access to it right now to learn their scope and pieces, just because they've been very busy, and we are at capacity for our processors, where we're not adding or removing staff, but they've been quite busy. And we've also adopted a PMC process here, so we've been filled with a lot of different projects, and True AI was one of those projects. So I think we've implemented like 13 different vendors this past year. So our experience is a lot different than others. So it's been great. Everybody has been with us every single week with stand-ups, with questions, with how we do this, how we do that. Can we move it on a milestone? We come up with new stuff because of all the other moving parts with the projects, but it was not difficult, and anybody that we had questions for or needed assistance was there to help us immediately through our thought process of how we wanted it to work in our live environment for our teams. So it's, again, our answers are going to be subjective to how much time you have to dedicate it to it, and if it's the only thing you're focusing on, it would be relatively quick, I would imagine.
Got it.
I would add this. We are not a drop and run type of company, right? So we really want to make sure the software is implemented in a way that the customer realizes max ROI. So we're going to sit there, we're going to work with you, we're going to work on confidences, make sure we get those confidences to where you're getting the throughput you want. If there are custom documents that have to be learned or tweaked, we really want to work with you and make sure that the tools are meeting the expectations that you set forward for it. And so in implementation, it can go really fast or it could take some time. We're just going to make sure we get it right and make sure that that our customers are happy with it at the end.
Yeah, I'll add, thanks, Bob. I'll add to that, you know, we have a really strong opinion and we have a really strong methodology on how to implement our software. And the folks at TrueStone, you know, have a great opinion on how to adopt it, and I agree with it. And one of the things that we want to ensure, you know, is what Bob said, is we want to make sure that it's interacting properly at the intersection of your business process, whether that's if your process is optimized now, great, we want to meet that intersection. If you have a 2B process, we want to be there as well. And so we're going to spend the time necessary to ensure that it's successful where you want us to meet you. So I think we're running up against time. There was another question about pricing. You know, listen, I encourage you to reach out. We'll talk about that in a minute. Our pricing is tiered and our pricing is based on volume. So definitely reach out and you're going to get some information on that once the webinar ends. The last question, what LOS systems does this currently work with? Currently, we have an integration with Encompass. You know, Bob and team are building I was joking with him yesterday because we're all old guys, a middleware piece. So that's going to make it relatively simple for us to integrate with other LOSs on a go-forward basis. But right now we have a very strong integration with Encompass. So with that transition, I just want to thank everybody for coming today. I want to thank all of our guests, Mike and Whitney and Allie. Tremendous. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
And we appreciate your advocacy. If you have any other questions or you want to learn more about True, visit us at www.true.ai, or you can email us at info@true.ai. As I mentioned earlier, there'll be a landing page at the end of this webinar. There's going to be more, some white papers, some things directly related to this topic. And then within a day or two, you're going to receive a follow-up email that'll contain a link to this recording. So again, on behalf of True and everyone here presenting, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of your day.